Hello everyone, welcome to Dough Daddy Cooks. My name's Frank and I am the Chief Flavor Officer for Dough Daddy. And today we are going to make a very simple pizza dough recipe. I've got a fundraiser coming up in a couple weeks and I need to experiment with a recipe and some pizzas. I need to make 20 to 30 pizzas. So today I'm going to make enough dough to make 2 test pizzas, which I will cook in a few days. Maybe I'll make a video on that, we'll see. Who knows? But at any rate, I'm going to make a very basic dough recipe. And what I have here, if you can see, it's called mise en place. And simply mise en place means everything in its place. And this is the first thing, maybe the second thing they teach you in culinary school, and that's to have all of your ducks in a row. Make sure everything is lined up, you got everything you need right then, right in front of you, so when it comes time to doing your cooking and your prep, everything is there. You don't have to go looking for stuff. So what I have here, I've already pre-measured, but I've got my King Arthur's bread flour in here. It's a high-protein flour, which is great for the pizza I'm making, and I have about 351 grams of flour in here. I also have about 238 grams, or about 8 ounces, of room temperature tap water. I also have about 11 grams of sea salt, and I also have 0.3 of a gram of instant dry yeast. Now when we use instant dry yeast, we don't need to proof it. You can mix it right in with the other dry ingredients and it should be absolutely fine. But one thing I do want to point out is when you're measuring grams, it's a good idea to have a scale that can go full grams and then tenths of a gram, so you can get that 0.3 of a gram. Otherwise, you're never going to find that. And the reason that I'm using so little yeast is I'm going to do a bulk ferment for about 2 hours in the oven on proof setting. If you don't have an oven that does proof setting, then simply just cover it, keep it in a warm place, and let it sit until it doubles in volume. And it's always a good idea to use something that's clear, like this, so you can see, you can actually look at the volume and see when it's doubled, and we'll show you that in a little bit. So we've got the water, we got the flour in here, I've got the water. I don't put oil in this dough because oil, any fat, when you put fat into a dough, it tends to make it a little bit more tender. So if you think about New York pizza, in a New York style pizza, and I'm looking south because I want to look towards New York. You want a little bit of fat in there, simply just to give it some strength so you can fold it. But typically when I make a pizza, I'm making it Connecticut style, New Haven style. It's going to have a little bit of a crunch to it, so it's not going to really, doesn't need that tenderness, that the strength that the oil offer. But I will use the oil to line the proofing container, and then the major container that I use when I bulk ferment, and then the smaller containers when I put it in the refrigerator. Because I will, after I make this, I will separate it into 2 300-gram balls, and then I'll put it in the refrigerator for 3 days. And that's the nice thing about the bulk fermentation out here, and then the cold fermentation in the refrigerator, is that it builds up nice and slowly. You get a nice slow fermentation, builds up that flavor, and which is another reason that I use salt, right? And really the basics to dough, you're going to have 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. That's all you need. Now sometimes people put other things in there. They might throw some dough enhancers or some olive oil or some sugar. I'm keeping it very simple today: flour, water, salt, and yeast. And really the amount of yeast is determined by how long and at what temperature I'm going to let it ferment or rise. So my first rise is going to be at about 90 degrees. That's called the bulk fermentation. And that's going to rise for maybe an hour or 2 till it doubles in volume. When I get it out, I'll separate them into 2 balls, form them into balls, and then I'll put them in smaller containers, a little bit of olive oil, and I'll tuck them in the refrigerator for 3 days. Because of that, we don't need a lot of yeast. Otherwise, these things will just go out of control. So we just need a little bit of yeast. We talk about salt. I like to use salt probably at about 3%. And when I say percent, I'm talking baker's percentages. So let me kind of talk about that for a second. For those of you that don't know what a baker's percentage is, it simply uses flour as the base measurement, and that is 100%. And then everything else is a percent of that. So because I have 230 some odd grams of water and 500 some odd grams, and I don't remember the exact measurement, but I'll put them in the notes, it's about 68% hydration, which is perfect for what we need. Salt is going to be at about 3%. And you'll see pizza dough, bread dough, anywhere from 2, 2.5 to 3. I like going to the higher end of 3%. Salt is not just a flavor enhancer, right? Salt's one of those things where if it's not there, you know it. If there's too much of it there, it's like, whoa, this is not good. It tastes very salty and briny. But with the right amount of salt, you don't even know it's there, but there's just something about it. So it brings out the flavor. But what it also does is it helps to strengthen the dough. And when we mix the dough, we're strengthening it so we can stretch it. So salt will help do that. Salt also helps to slow down the yeast production. So, or the gas that the yeast produces. So it slows it down a little bit. Too much salt will kill the yeast, but you really need a lot to do that. But at 3%, it's going to be just enough to slow it down. So when you put it in the refrigerator, it's going to build up a nice, fermentation, cold fermentation flavor. So when it comes out and you finish your finished product, you're going to taste dough. You're going to taste what it's supposed to taste like. It's not going to taste like a flour paste. Okay. So what I have here, I put the flour into the mixer, and then I'm simply just going to add the water to that. So I'm just going to add the water first, and then I'm going to turn it on slow. First, you want to lift it up. And you want to start slow, because we've all done this. If you start on a high speed, it kicks up the flour, and then, I start looking like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So we're doing it nice and slow. Just going to incorporate some of the flavors, some of the water into the dough. Maybe pick it up a little bit. We're just going to let the water and the flour come together. Maybe I'll use a rubber spatula to kind of clean the sides a little bit. But we just want the water and the flour to come together. Also, it's important to have a bowl scraper, so you can just scrape, go right back in. Everything's nice and neat. You don't make a big mess. And sometimes I might have to just put it down, scrape the sides. And I apologize for not having an overhead camera yet, but this is early on in my YouTube career. And I don't have overhead cameras, but it's on my list. And I will get there. I just had my kitchen remodeled, and I had this filming studio in mind when I had it remodeled. But one of the things my wife was against is any overhead equipment. So as much as I would love to have an overhead mount for a camera, that wasn't going to fly. So it's all about concessions in a relationship, right? So again, what I'm doing now is I'm just keeping the dough, the flour, and the water going. I'm going to throw in the yeast. Keep everything in the sink. And here we can go a little bit faster. And I'm basically just mixing this until everything gets combined. In school, they teach you there are 5 stages to when you're mixing. I don't think I need to go into that at this point. But we're just going to do this until I see the things come off. You can see the dough pull from the side. And you don't want to go too fast. Because one of the things that will happen is when you go too fast, you're introducing heat into the dough. And too much dough or too much heat will kill the yeast. So dough has something that we call a desired toe temperature. Every dough has a temperature that it feels comfortable at. And if you go to my website, doughdaddycooks.com, I do have a thing on dough temperatures, desired dough temperatures, and how to calculate it. It's pretty simple. Just need a thermometer. So you know how much, I know what the temperature is in my house. I know what the temperature is in my flour. And then if I want my dough temperature higher than that, I use warmer water. If I want it colder than that, I use colder water. Because I'm doing this cold fermentation, I don't need the yeast to get super active right away, so it's okay to use room temperature water. If I was making a same day dough, I might want to have my water temperature maybe 90 to 100, no more than 110. Maybe knead it by hand a little bit, that introduces less heat. But right now everything's kind of coming together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in my salt. And then we're going to mix that until it's fully combined. We can go a little bit faster now. While that's going, I'm going to add a little bit of bench flour. I'm not going to do a lot of handling of the dough by hand, but I am going to put it down here to shape. So I put a little bit of bench flour down. And then I have my clear container for when I want to get ready to ferment that. In the meantime, I'm going to turn my oven on. So as I set my oven to proof, if you have it, it's a nice feature to have. What it does is it keeps the temperature at about no more than 90 to 100 degrees, which is the ideal proofing temperature. Like I said, if you don't have an oven that has that, then we simply just put it in the corner, cover it a couple towels, and let it go until it's doubled. All right. So it looks like the salt is definitely been incorporated. I'm going to throw it here. Just give you a little bit of, spread a little bit of the flour there. Then we're going to put that down there. So if you're going to knead it by hand, what you want to do is you want to, again, make sure your surface isn't too sticky. You don't want to introduce a lot of flour, because then you're going to throw off the hydration levels, right? So if you have too much flour, your hydrations are going to go down. If you add too much water, it's going to go up. But basically, it's just fold and push, fold and push. This is what the dough hook in here is kind of emulating. But if you were doing it by hand, this is what you would do. Roll it on itself, dough, push and roll, push and roll. Roll it on itself, push and roll, push and roll. I actually like doing this at times because to me it's very therapeutic. You feel the dough kind of come to life in your hands, which is kind of neat. I know I'm probably kind of a culinary nerd, and I apologize for that, but this is a very relaxing, and for those of you that have made dough before, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, push, fold and push, fold and push. Now this is working okay because I'm making a small batch, right? I'm doing just enough for 2. But when I make my pizzas next weekend, I'm making enough dough for 30, which means I'm going to have 30 300 milligram rounds. That's a lot to knead by hand. So definitely I will do it in batches in my KitchenAid, which is a little, these things are workhorses. They work really well. But I think this dough is looking good. I'm not looking for, complete gluten development yet. Though it has gotten some through this mixing and the kneading. One of the ways you can tell is if you can, it's called the window pane test. And if you can stretch it very thin, you can see it's starting to break apart a little bit. So it needs a little bit more gluten development. But the 2 things that are going to help develop gluten are the folding, because you're crossing over those strands, and also time. So by simply letting it proof rise at you know, to whatever temperature we're using, whether we're using in the oven or in a blanket. That will give it some strength as well. All right, so what I'm going to do, just going to measure this, and it should be 600 grams. $594 grams, so we are good. Not too worried about a few grams, because for comparison purposes, paperclip weighs about 1 gram. So I'm about 5 paper clips shy. I think we'll be good. But here it is. So what I'm going to do is throw a little bit of olive oil in the container. Looks like there's a little bit of flour in there, which I will get out. And then we coat it. Always a good idea to have your bench towels with you. And I like to keep everything in one place. You know, I kind of like to clean as I go. I know my wife might laugh when she hears that, but when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, it's important to have a very clean workspace. Try to keep it organized. Again, mise en place, get everything ready. My stuff is right here. I've got my stuff, my dough now in the see-through container. I can see exactly where I am. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in the oven. And I'm going to let it proof till it about doubles in size. So, you know, if you don't have an oven that proofs, a couple things: cover it with a blanket, leave it on the countertop, check back in about an hour. You want to see it double in size, might take up to 2 hours. Sometimes you can simply just leave it in the oven with the light on. That works as well. Or if you have a newer oven and it's got a proofing feature, then I would certainly do that. So I think that's it for now. I am going to, through the magic of video, we will see you in a couple hours when my dough has doubled in size. So until then, arrivederci. All right, well, it's been actually about 90 minutes. So we're going to check the dough. And you can tell that it actually did what it was supposed to do. So again, I'm going to put some more of my bent flour down. Take this, plop that down. Put this in the sink. Got my 2 Glad containers here for my cold proofing. And you can see here that it's, you can do kind of the window pane test. You can see how you can look right through that. So this is actually proofed up very nice. So we're good to go. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a rough ball with it. And then I'm going to portion it out. So remember last time I said we had about 595 grams. All right, so about half of that is going to be just under 300. So we can take our cutter, our bench scraper, bowl scraper, and we cut it. That's about 260. All right. Okay. So, we got about 300 grams each. And what I'm going to do is, there's a little bit of oil here, and we're going to clean it off a little bit. We don't want too much oil on that. But I am going to put some in each one of the Tupperware containers. It's a good idea just so they don't stick there. And then I'm going to shape these. So it's kind of an odd looking shape right now, but we're going to put it down, flatten it out a little bit, and then roll it in. Pinch in the corners, pinch in the corners, pinch in the corners. And we're going to make it nice and smooth. And there's different ways to do this. And everyone has their own technique. There's really no wrong or right way. As long as you make a nice little circle out of it, you can, and as you do it, you kind of roll, tuck and under, roll and tuck and under, roll, tuck and under. And what you're doing is you're increasing the surface area on the top of the ball while you're closing off the bottom. Right? You want And then with the dry board, you want to just kind of maybe do this a little bit. And then when you have the ball like that, when it comes out of the refrigerator after it's been proof for 3 days, it's very easy to form the pizza because it's already in a circle. And we'll go over that in another video, but you just boom, boom, press, press, press. But that looks good right there. Just want to close off the bottom. Again, that looks really good. Nice tight surface area. We're going to pop that there. Same thing here. This is the one that had all those little pieces because I was adding to it. We just want to tuck those in. You know, make sure that they're all incorporated. And as it expands in the refrigerator during the cold fermentation, they'll all incorporate themselves. But again, same thing, you know, just tuck and roll, tuck and roll, tuck and roll, tuck and roll. And each time you pull down, you're increasing the surface area, kind of building up a little bit of gluten strength there as well. And it's important that if, you know, your cutting board is dry, your surface is dry, you want a little bit of friction, right? So it kind of, see, nice and boom, there you go. Put a little bit of olive oil on the top, a little bit of olive oil on the top. You want to coat it. And we're good to go. Now we're going to put these covers on. And those are going to go in the refrigerator for about 3 days. 72-hour cold fermentation. They will increase in size, and then by the time they're done, they're going to make a delicious pizza base. And then I'm going to use these, and I'm going to make just some basic pizzas, and maybe I'll make some videos showing you how to do that. Just some basic sauce, some basic cheese toppings. Normally I would cook my pizzas if I'm cooking outside. I have a wood-fired oven. I would cook them in the wood-fired oven. If I'm cooking inside, I'm cooking convention, you know, in a convection setting at about 550, using pizza steels. Because of my fundraiser that's coming up, I got to cook somewhere between 20 and 30 pizzas. I actually have to kind of reverse engineer my gas grill to become a pizza oven. Hopefully it goes well. I've got a bunch of people coming, shooting for, like I say, 20 to 30 pizzas. I'll be making some pizzas for that. I'm going to put together maybe some garlic rolls, so I'll use the same type of dough for that. This dough is great for rolls, pizza crusts. So I'm going to make, I said, 30 rounds for the pizzas, but I'm also going to make garlic knots with the same dough. And then I might make some desserts, maybe a pot de creme or a banana pudding. I may do some videos on that as well. So again, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. So hopefully you learned a little bit. But I will post the recipe in the notes section so you guys all can look at this. But it's also on my website. The website's up and coming. It's newly launched. It's www.doughdaddycooks.com. And on there you'll see cooking videos that I post, which will also be tied back to my YouTube channel, Dough Daddy Cooks. I also have restaurant reviews. And a cool little thing I do with all my friends called the Slice Mob, where we get together once a month and we try different pizza places since we are the pizza capital of the country. So once a month we check out different pizza places. There's about 10 or 12 of us that go, and I document our findings at each one of those. I write up a nice little review with that. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you found this interesting, please, let me know in the comments. I want to do more of these, but I want to give you something that you're all looking for. So please, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and have a great day.